I'm very cognizant of the fact that I am the last speaker of the day, so I will be a little bit brief, but I also want to leave you with a few key messages on how we're going to push forward. When I started here this morning, I did note that we're essentially at the 8th, almost 9th year mark of our research program, and normally it's really hard to keep research programs going more than 5 years. And you would think at the 8 or 9 year mark we would be winding up. The fact of the matter is this is a research initiative that we just want to keep pushing forward, and we see still a lot of opportunities. And I'll just spend a little bit of time here just showing you, giving you a sense of some of the direction that we're going to be taking and some of the thoughts are. And I'll also tell you what data that we're processing right now and what you can expect or we're hoping to have available in the next 4 or 5 months. So everybody here and you folks are all cognizant of the fact as we are that the world is watching us, and they're watching us to provide leadership with respect to innovation and environmental stewardship and monitoring, and the government is trying to respond to that, and we're really trying to take a leadership role. So our work here today is kind of timely. And one of the challenges that I take back to my employer is can we really move to a point where our collective department now, Energy and Sustainable Resource, or Environment, sorry, Sustainable Resource Development, is actually an information superpower. In forestry, we used to be cognizant or accept that we had data that was, subpar accuracy. We want to change that. We want to see how far can we push the envelope in having outstanding information and from that become a leader in smart regulation. And we think the LiDAR certainly is key in that. I mentioned this slide this morning in the answer to one of my questions, and really we're moving into an era of big data, and we're seeing that across a number of different disciplines today. I think it's a trend that's going to ever increase, and again, it fits with most of what we've heard here today. Now, shifting gears a little bit, because a lot of people are asking me questions about what is coming next. These are the data sets that are running today. So this is a big chunk, about 500,000 hectares, and it is immediately east of Wabasca Lake. So there's a lot of you that are probably doing operations in there, or you're working for clients. That chunk of data is processing at UMB, and we're hopeful that data will be available in the next data release. We have another big chunk of data, about 500,000 hectares, just southwest of Fort McMurray. Fort McMurray is about right here. This is a large chunk that we were asked to process in collaboration with SEMA for an access management study that's ongoing, and we're a little bit behind schedule. And then we're finally doing 2 more chunks down here in the south. Collectively, it's about 1.4 million hectares, and it's been processing for about a month now. We are hopeful that those results are going to be available for release in May. Having said that, I've been wrong on every one of my predictions on time availability, sometimes off by like 3 years. But in all honesty, we've streamlined our process for data release. The metadata is done. And we're really pushing to the point now internally where once the data is accepted and we've done some sort of quality control on it, we're going to try and start getting it released. The other big piece of data that is nearing a release is this chunk here. And I think it's about 2.5 million hectares. It might actually be a little bit more. And that data is also right now undergoing some quality control and fine-tuning. And we're hoping that data will be available for release within the next couple of months. So we're hoping at least by the end of May that we'll have about just under 4 million hectares released in what we'll probably end up calling Phase 3 and Phase 4. Where a lot of our emphasis now, though, is building on what Joyce talked about an hour ago. And we realized that mapping water, or where water wasn't on the landscape at very high resolution, gave us a lot of insight as to what was going on that landscape in terms of plant productivity, tree productivity, or what species were where and where they weren't. It was all an absolute dismay to me that when we started working with Alberta Parks, and back in 2007, we had one of their biologists asked us to do mapping for his PhD work with flying squirrel. And I had trouble at the time of wrapping my head around as to what the linkage was to habitat, but we said, sure, we'll do it. We mapped out his study sites. You saw some of his results. What Joyce didn't say was actually the wet areas was his strongest statistical variable in his model. And it really gave us, really refocused our thinking about how we can take this type of data and re-looking at it in terms of what processes are going on in the ecosystems. And this was a slide that Joyce showed, but it's very promising because these red areas are very xeric sites. They're very dry, they're south-facing, the depth to water is fairly deep, and we know from extensive field work through mainly the Wilmore that these have very dry plant communities. And conversely, we have areas here where we have very wet communities, etc. Foresters are really good at deciding where it's wet and where it's really dry, as most of us do. Often what's a challenge, though, is in the medium moisture classes of knowing when it's just a little, where moisture is a little bit limiting or a little bit too much. And that's where this data really comes in to be helpful. And we know that if we have a spot just sometimes on these fringes is where we get the best productivity. We know from one of our partners in Eastern Canada, J.D. Irving, that they've taken this type of information and put it into their operational growth and yield. And they are able to use it to fine-tune where they put, for example, white spruce versus black spruce. Here in Alberta, because we have LiDAR-derived wet area maps, we think the possibilities are endless because our data is even that much better. The opportunities to take this and put it into site classification, strategic analysis like silviculture investments of where I can expect trees to grow really, really good versus just kind of subpar or we think really significant. One particular area, though, that we want to move in, and we hope to, is starting to integrate a lot of the different data that we're collecting. We've been really good as a province to buying LiDAR data. We have more LiDAR data than most jurisdictions, frankly, internationally. We also have a lot of data sets around the province in terms of either growth and yield, in terms of habitat, productivity estimates, etc. And one of the areas that we really want to start moving into is integrating these types of data sets and looking at different attributes that can be defined by LiDAR data, moisture on the landscape, habitat, and all of the different empirical data sets that we have. We don't see a need per se to always run out and collect more data. What we really want to do is make sure that we're integrating the best data that we have today, because there truly are some excellent experiments in Alberta with data sets that really provide a really good opportunity to move our knowledge ahead and translate this onto a spatial basis for the landscape to inform land use planning. One of the areas also that really brought us here today was to expand the applications. Moisture on the landscape affects everybody that works there. We primarily started this out as a forestry experiment. All of us that are involved in it are foresters, but we know that there's a lot of applications that go far beyond that, and essentially that's why it brought us here to Calgary today. And one of the things that we want to do over the next year or two is forge new partnerships and identify new applications. We don't propose that we have all the answers ourselves. We don't know your business. Really what we want to do is provide the information and allow people to run and to innovate with it. And essentially that has been one of our strategies over time. And so you saw presentations here today by industrial users, and our approach really has been to give out information and let them run with it. They know their industry's best and allow for that in-house innovation. And to date within the forestry sector, it's been a real success. And we want that to continue within the energy sector as well. And with that, one of the things that we are pushing for is the release of the raw data. What is available today is just the geotiff data of where wet areas are and the flow lines. Really what we want, though, down the road at some point is to have available the raw data, the flow direction, the flow accumulation rasters, the wet area rasters. These are enormous files, but they are manageable. And it's these types of data, though, that allow you to follow through on that innovation in-house and develop whole new products, a whole new stream of products and applications that right now maybe we haven't even been thinking about. But that's one of the discussions that we're having internal in government right now is how do we start getting this type of data out to the users. We don't have an answer for that today, but it is very high on our discussion list. And finally, my last slide is simply, when we started this, we simply recognized that everybody who works on our landscape wants to be a good steward. That's not the challenge. The challenge has always been just making sure that when people are out there making land use decisions, they've got the best information, the best tools to make a decision that's economic, timely, and basically it's empowering all Albertans to be a better land steward.